Alright guys, so I'm Smit and I'm here to teach you how to hustle so you can apply all the knowledge that you've learned to get a job in the most abnormal ways possible. So, brief background about me. So I'm currently working at a company called Datadog, which is actually right down the street on Art Street. I do business development there currently, but I have background in marketing and sales. I've worked at companies both in Boston and Silicon Valley. Probably another local company you guys might know of is HubSpot. I worked there a couple of years ago as well, so something relevant there. And the reason why I'm here is so I can walk you through my story of how I've landed all these 5 internships and eventually leading to my full-time job right now using personal branding, social media, and then teach you and give you actual success stories so you know that I'm not just making this stuff up, right? So the first question, right? Why do you need a personal brand? Why do you need an online presence? It's simple. It's this. We do this for everything. We Google where we're gonna eat. We Google anyone who we're gonna go out on a date with. We're gonna Google who we hire. We're gonna Google our future employer. So the same way they're gonna Google us when we apply for a job. So that's the straightforward reason. And when they Google you, you probably want your LinkedIn, your blog to show up first instead of some picture of you partying, right? So that's probably the straightforward reason. So how do you figure out your personal brand? So all of us here already have it. It's already, every one of us has a personality, every one of us has certain hobbies, everyone has certain skills that make up what we are. All of us are unique. We just need to sit down and self-reflect and literally write it down. So there's 3 things to it. So the first thing is you write down what you value. So what are the values in your life that you care deeply about. You write those down. What are your abilities? Now abilities are confidence, and then skills. What are actual concrete skills that an employer will hire you for, right? So for you guys, now it's big data is a hard skill that they can hire you for. So you write those 3 things down, and then it will help you figure out what your actual brand is from a hiring perspective, and then you figure out what your hobbies and personality is, and then that creates a unique combination of who you are. Maybe you like traveling, you like photography. Maybe there's a person who's into big data, but they don't do those things. So you're already unique compared to that person who's applying for a job. So the first step in personal branding. Now this is even I'm surprised that people still don't have a LinkedIn profile. It's so obvious, but I know that people still don't have it, so I put it up here. So the first step is have an actual LinkedIn profile. If you just Google how to create a good LinkedIn profile, you'll find a lot of blog posts out there which will help you create a decent looking LinkedIn profile. The most simple way to think about it is having a resume, but that's available to the entire world, right? You never know who's going to be looking at your profile. Recruiters now have softwares which are basically scraping LinkedIn for certain keywords. So if you put certain keywords like big data or whatever it is that you can bring to an employer and that gets flagged by that software, you will be in their radar. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you don't exist. So that's the simplest way to think about that. Now, once you have the LinkedIn profile, there's a lot of proactive things that you need to do. You can't just let it sit there. So first thing is LinkedIn groups. So there's LinkedIn groups for pretty much everything out there, based on your interest, based on your industry, even for probably photography, right? Even for big data. There's probably 5 LinkedIn groups I can point to if I did a quick LinkedIn search right now like that. So once you go on that, the beauty of that is there's obviously the admins of the group, but then there's people from the actual industry who are part of that group. So you can reach out to those people saying, hey, I saw you were part of this LinkedIn group as well, trying to get into the industry, love to connect for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And generally people are very receptive because you already have that warm connection between you and them because you're part of the same group. And then the other thing you can do is, you guys are now part of Northeastern, so you can look up alumni who went to Northeastern, and it's pretty big, alumni network at this point. So you can, the first thing, a lot of people do these days is if they're applying for a job, they'll try to find out if anyone from their school went to this, or are working at the same company. So you can reach out to that person directly, try to get a warm intro into the company. It's pretty straightforward. So this is my success story with LinkedIn. So my current manager, Scott Hill, and I were connected on LinkedIn. We had met at a startup event, a couple of years ago, and then he posted saying, hey, he's looking for folks on his team. And as you can see, I commented saying, hey, I might know someone. I didn't say it was me. I didn't want to tell other people that I was looking for a job, so I just said that. He gave me his email, and I sent him a cold email, explaining everything that I've done since I last met him. And then, I ended up meeting him for a couple meetings, and then he hired me as an intern last December, and I ended up getting a full-time job offer in March. So, this stuff works. The second piece that is obviously a lot more harder in terms of putting effort is blogging. So, you can create a blog for anything. I've talked to a lot of people, and they're just afraid of putting their thoughts out there. It's scary, you're more vulnerable when you share your thoughts. You think that people would make fun of you, or people might disagree with your opinions. But the fact is, it's your blog. You can say whatever the hell you want. No one can disagree with your opinion. It's your opinion. And so when you figure out a particular topic that you're curious about, these are all, he said, besides myself, these are all college students that I knew when I was in college. So, this guy was very interested in media. So his blog was all about media and how he was getting all these media internships. This guy was into venture capital, so he created a blog of, all the stuff that he's learning about venture capital industry, all the VCs that he's meeting in the area. So he was simply blogging about that. And then this person, Maria, she went to school with me. She wanted to become a content marketer, so she literally started a blog called Queen of Content. She wasn't Queen of Content in college, but she started that blog, and then she just started writing about content marketing. She was hired right away when she graduated. And then my blog is all about personal growth and then marketing and sales, so all growth related things. Go ahead.
So with the personal blog you have, did it make any impact for to your future employers or people who actually are in, or any companies that were actually interested in hiring you for something? Do they actually look at your blog and do they ask you about it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, right? So when you apply for a job, the first thing they do mostly is they Google you. So when they Google you, your blog shows up. They'll go on your blog. They see that, first of all, it's a show don't tell kind of thing, where it's like saying that, hey, I'm into big data, and then actually having a blog and writing about big data. It's two different things, right? So they're seeing that, hey, this person is actually taking the effort learning about the industry. I've been in interviews where they reference to specific things I've written in a blog post. So this is my success story from a blog, right? So this guy, Insha, is a big entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I wrote a blog post which I mentioned him in the blog post, and he ended up reading the blog post somehow, and he emailed me saying, hey, how can I help? It went reverse, right? I didn't reach out to him saying, hey, can you be my mentor? He reached out to me. So you never know who's reading it.
Your blog has good SEO.
And it wasn't SEO. I put it on Hacker News, which was a community for technologists. It still exists, but back in the day, you could actually hack it to get on the front page. So I did that back in the day. So he ended up seeing it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
So the third thing is Twitter. Even though the stock's not doing well and the company is not doing well, we don't care about that, because if it helps us, we have to use the tool. So Twitter is not just a place to talk about what you had for lunch and what are you gonna do tomorrow. It's actually a great place to follow people in your industry. So chances are your future employer, your future boss, or just people in your industry are on Twitter right now, and they're talking, sharing their thoughts on relevant topics. And it's very simple. There's obviously it's free. You sign up, you get an account, and then you can literally start engaging with them. And they cannot tell you you're wrong. You can start replying to their tweets. So, if they shared a particular blog post, maybe you like a particular thing about it, you can start getting on their radar that way. And then maybe you can send them an email after saying, hey, saw you guys are hiring for this post. we connected on Twitter. So it's all about finding those nuggets. So, you know, compared to the 500 other people who are applying for a job, you are going to stand out because they see your name and they might remember you. Hey, this is the person who, you know, connected with me on Twitter. No one else is going to do that. So this is my success story from Twitter, apart from lots of other ones that I've had. So one day I was in class in college, and this person who's a venture capitalist out of New York happened to be in Boston, and he tweeted, hey, anyone want to get lunch near Harvard at 1 p.m.? And I was sitting in class, obviously not paying attention, and I was looking at his tweet, and obviously I replied saying, hey, I'm down. I just ran out of class, got on the red line, and I got lunch with this guy, right? And obviously there's things like these happening all the time, right? There's a conference going on in Boston right now, inbound conference for marketing. There's people tweeting left and right. There's so many people that you can meet. There's a chance that someone's hiring for a role that you guys could be fit for. So, you know, you gotta get on it. And then if you use twitter.com/search, you can actually search for specific keywords. You can search for specific hashtags. You can also filter it by location. So if you just want to, you know, filter by tweets that are in Boston area, you can do that as well. So it gets very good. This is another story from Twitter. So my internship that I had before, the last one, I followed the founder on Twitter, and then we just, you know, kind of became friends through Twitter. I had traded emails with him, so I had him on my Google Hangouts, Gchat, which not a lot of people use anymore. Well, 2 years ago, you know, people still used it. So I saw that they had an opening for an internship, and I simply G-chatted him. Now, this is the founder of the company. I said, hey, what's the worst case? I'm just gonna ask him on Google Hangouts if I can, you know, apply for the job. And obviously he got back, and he said he was, you know, because he was looking for an MBA intern. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't even have an undergrad degree. I was a junior in college. So, but it didn't hurt, and he ended up hiring me. Right? So it's you miss all the shots you take. Events. I mean, this is very old school, but you can take a new approach to events. So the approach that's worked for me is I always scan the attendee list. So a lot of times if they use like Eventbrite or any of those online, you know, event tools, you can see the attendees. And you know, it's creepy, but if you find say 2-3 people that you really want to meet, that way you go into the event knowing exactly what you're gonna do. Because a lot of times you go to events and you get anxious because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know who's gonna be there. You don't know what you're gonna say. But if you do your research ahead of time, you know that, hey, I'm going to talk to these 2-3 people, you've researched those 2-3 people, and then you can just go up to them and say, hey, you know, I read about you, or, you know, I follow you on Twitter, or I read your post, I really like this thing about it. It stands out. The best part is when you go up to that person and there's 3 other people standing next to them and you say something nice about them in front of those 3 people, they will feel amazing because, you know, it boosts their ego. People like talking about themselves, right? So it works. So, you know, obviously you guys are not alone. There's, you know, meetups going on for data specific stuff. So I mean, I did a quick sort of search on data on meetup.com. There's tons on eventbrite.com. So there's a ton of these meetup groups specific to every industry out there right now. So this is my story, another from an event. So one of my other mentors that I had was through an event I went to. It's a funny story. So I was trying to get hired by a startup founder. So I was following this startup founder at this conference, and I was just waiting in line to talk to him because at the time he was running a company which was very popular. So there were a lot of people who wanted to talk to him. So I was standing in line, and then it was lunchtime, and so people went away because it was lunch. I just brought his lunch to him. I said, hey, I got your lunch. Can we talk? And so I just ended up talking to this guy. But the story is that the guy who he was with actually ended up being the mentor that I'm talking about because he worked at a pretty big company at the time. And I just said, hey, you know, you seem like someone who's really experienced. I'd love to kind of get guidance from you. And he actually helped me also get, you know, referrals into other startups that I ended up working with. So cold emailing, this is how I got my first internship. This is how I've got a lot of things that I wanted to get. People are just afraid of cold emailing people. It's not bad, because the worst case is you'll end up where you started, which is at point zero. But if the person replies to you, your upside is so much higher. Now you have a meeting with someone you wanted to be. Right? This is what I do for a living now, so I'm kind of just attuned to the whole cold emailing game. So there are tools out there like Yesware, Towdap, which actually also show you when someone opens your email, or where they open it, including the location, if they clicked on anything in your email. So that way you can actually figure out if they're opening your email, they're not replying to you. That means either your email was not that good, maybe they were busy, maybe they forgot about it. So if they're opening your email, that's generally a decent sign. You should follow up. If they're not opening your email, then you should still follow up. But if they're opening your email, then you know that, hey, this person's engaged. It's not just going to waste. So this is, as I mentioned, my first internship that I got was through a plug.
Oh, what's the name of the software you used?
Yesware?
Yes.
Yesware or Towdap. There's a couple of them. Yeah. So they had, I think both of them still have a free version. But if not, then you can also use HubSpot's Signals. I think they definitely have a free version. So this is my success story, my first ever cold email success story. When I was a freshman in college, I wanted to work at a startup, so I just cold emailed like 50 companies in Silicon Valley, and then one of them got back to me and ended up hiring me. The email was terrible because I was a freshman, I didn't know how to write emails, but it worked. So typically, it's very easy to find emails of people. It's actually not that hard as you think. It's generally their name dot last name at the company domain. There's tools out there which help you figure out what their emails are. I'm happy to send you links if you guys just email me. I'll just send you links on those tools if you're interested. Now if you actually once you actually get the meeting or the interview, it goes without saying that you should be prepared. It's surprising that people show up to interviews, they show up to meetings, just expecting the other person to know everything about you. I mean, chances are that person has a million other things going on in their life, including their job and their personal life. They're not going to do their research on you. They are the one who accepted the meeting. You need to do your research, right? So you should know the person, right? Google the shit out of them. Figure out what their experience is, what the company is doing, what their role is, and ask specific questions to that, because that way they know that you did your research. You're not just asking like point blank broad questions. Hey, tell me your story. How many people are going to ask that? Everyone. So if you ask specific things, hey, I saw you went from this role to this role in a progression of a year or 2 years. How'd you do that? Can you tell me something about that? That's more specific than just asking a really broad question. And then knowing the company, I mean, it goes without saying. Most of the companies these days are pretty active on social media and things like that. So you can figure out the personality of the company a lot of times. If they're on Twitter, if they're on Facebook, if they're blogging, what their voice, what their tone looks like. So if you're applying to a startup which is run by 5 people, and then you go to interview at that company wearing like a 3-piece suit, that's a big red flag. Compared to like a big company, you go interview there and you're wearing like a t-shirt and jeans. You don't want to do that. So by doing the research on the company, you know all these things. Now this is a key thing that I've done myself. I still make mistakes about is following up, right? So let's say if someone agreed to a meeting with you, giving you advice, even an interview, follow up. A lot of times people don't follow up. So, if someone give you advice and then that advice help you get somewhere in your career, you should, it's kind of a human 101 that you should send them an email thanking them for their time, giving them updates that, hey, your advice helped me, I got a job, or hey, thanks for the interview, what could I do better? Things like that. Following up really makes a difference, and you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. So when I interviewed for an internship a couple of years ago, and I didn't get the internship, but I followed up asking, hey, why, what could I have done better? Was there anything that I can learn if I'm reapplying? And the hiring manager replied back to me saying that this is the first time that anyone's ever asked me this. And it goes without saying that you should be doing it anyways, but people don't do it. So actually this email is a follow-up email that I sent to my manager after meeting him first time, and then he had basically raised some, I should say not concerns, but certain points on what he wanted out of an intern, and I made sure that I touched on it when I followed up. So I specifically mentioned, hey, just to reiterate, these are the things you want me to do. These are some other ideas that I can bring to the table. So that way they know that you're not just trying to get a job. You're thoughtful. You can add value right away, even before starting the internship. Now, so I have this do the opposite theory that I learned from a friend named Steve. So he basically says that when you're pissed off, do the opposite of what you would ideally do. So when you go, for an interview or you want something and you don't get it, your ideal thing is you just tell them to F off. You're pissed off. I hate you. Whatever. But he says you do the opposite. So going back to the earlier point, if you don't get the job, that doesn't mean it was personal. There could be a million other reasons why you didn't get it. Maybe there was someone just super experienced than you that you didn't have any, you had no idea about. Maybe they didn't have the budget, whatever. So you don't know why they didn't hire you in the first place. So you never take it personally. I have kept in touch with people that have not hired me, and then they've ended up, emailing me and contacting me to, for another opportunity later. So you just never know. You don't want to burn bridges for no reason. And then finally, you want to close the loop. So if someone met up with you, helped you out, or even if they said no, you still want to keep them updated. So this was a person that I had reached out to for an internship, and then they weren't hiring at the time, but I still kept in touch. I said, hey, I'm now at this company, but I'm coming to the area. Can we grab coffee? And she obviously agreed to do that. So I'm still on her radar. She might have not hired me today, but in 3 years, if there's a role for me, she'll probably hire me. So it goes without saying, if you want something, go get it. Period. I love this movie. Has everyone seen Pursuit of Happiness? Yeah. So that's my little spiel. Is there any questions? Good.
About the follow-up, I've heard from many people differently, the interval time of when you should actually do the follow-up. If you do it way too soon, it comes out as desperate or pushy, but if you do it too late, it makes it seem as lax. What is the ideal amount of time you could wait and then actually do the follow-up email?
Why are you afraid of coming up as desperate?
Oh no, that's what I heard from different people, that basically it depending on which company or depending on what kind of job you're trying to apply to, so they can interpret follow-ups in different ways, and I'm just wondering if there's an actual ideal amount of time that you can just do a follow-up.
Right. I mean, the way I think about it is you want the job, right? You want the person, you want to give them the impression that you're really interested in the job, right? So I don't think that it would hurt if you followed up in the same day or in the next day. If you waited a week, yes, that's definitely a bad thing.
Yeah. I
don't think there's anything wrong. Personally, I mean, all my follow-ups, I send them the same day or the next day. Because, you want a job, so you obviously want them to show that you're desperate. I want the job. What's wrong with that? You need to hire me. I'm the guy for your job.
Yeah. Even if it's just an hour ago that you had this interview, you just read the email. That's still
yeah.
Okay.
I've done that. It's not. There's nothing. So maybe you wanna think about that. Maybe when you have offers. So when you have say 3 offers on the table, and then you wanna play that card of, hey, I'm not desperate for this. Your offer. You can do that, but following up. I mean, I don't think there's a bad.
Yeah, because I received different ways, what people mentioned, so I just wanted to see what was your input about it.
Yeah, that's how I'd go about it.
2 things I'd add to the conversations. First, maybe to the list of tools, Slack. has quickly become another networking tool
Yeah.
out there. So I'm a part of 2 different Slack communities of a couple thousand members.
Yeah.
And I find the conversations there to be much more, much deeper than on Twitter, you know,
Yeah.
and much more intimate.
Yeah.
And because it feels like a little bit more of a exclusive kind of community that you've stumbled upon, I think people are a little bit more open, and you have easy access to luminaries in various different fields. So there's a Measure Slack community that I think this group would be interested in, and they have different channels for R and statistics and Google Analytics and Adobe products and stuff like that. It's mostly digital analytics, like web marketing stuff, but that's a good one. And the other, I'd recommend a book by Keith Ferrazzi called Never Eat Alone.
Yeah.
So when I started freelancing, that book was really inspirational to me, just to sort of like keep moving, and it sort of like makes the term networking not a dirty word anymore. You know, he really talks about just sort of, you know, more in terms of forming human connections and not trying to like get something out of it immediately, but just forming these bonds, because you never know where the next opportunity is going to come from. And I found that book really inspiring, and definitely something that I took to heart and really like have pushed, making sure to get out of the house and grab lunch with somebody at least, you know, once if not more a week. It's
Yeah.
been helpful.
No, those are good points. So the Slack is definitely I think I'm part of like 5 communities. Yeah, I'm part of like 6 right here. So I definitely use it. It's very good. And you said there's one specific to David?
Yeah. It's called Measure. You, just
Yeah,
have to
so-
you have to get you have to like submit a form to get an invite to get in.
Generally,
But
they're
it's,
pretty
yeah,
open,
they're like
right?
it's really open.
So that one, and then to add to the book list, Never Eat Alone, and then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those 2 are, you know, you go anywhere, people will recommend those. I mean, those, they don't have anything extraordinary, but it's, you know, basic human 101, you know.
Mhm.
People like people who are, you know, helpful, things like that. So
Mhm.
definitely recommend those 2 for sure.
When you're saying keep in touch, what's the frequency that you keep in touch with? You know, you showed that on the last slide, the email with the woman. Like, how often do you recommend keeping in touch with someone?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I don't have a specific kind of, you know, cadence around it. It's more, maybe, you know, if the company they're working at, you know, has a new, you know, news to announce, or, you know, something big happened with them. Maybe they got promoted, you know, things like that. It's rather, you know, just reactive most of the times. In that particular case, you know, I was going in the city that she works in, so I just ended up, you know, reaching out to her. So there's no particular cadence necessarily. So that's the thing, right? So if you are connected with people on Twitter, LinkedIn, you read their blog, you have all these opportunities to kind of just, you know, be reactive rather than proactive. You don't have to think about, hey, I need to reach out to this person. Maybe they tweeted something, you're favoriting their tweets, you're replying to their tweets once in a while, so you're always kind of there in their mind.
Can you talk like more about your background and like what you were looking for after college, what industry you wanted to go into, or just like pursue startups?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, so I when I was a freshman in college, I just wanted to get into startups. That was all I cared about. I wanted to start my own, and so I basically just wanted to be around people who were starting companies. So at first what I did was I started doing these meetups called Founder Matchup, which basically help people find co-founders. So I realized that there were a lot of people who were technical, and there's a lot of people who were non-technical. So like basically people who could code and people who couldn't code. So I was trying to connect those 2 people. So we did meetups for that. So that was my first kind of you know, experience doing this stuff. And then I realized that in order for me to kind of get the full startup experience, I should go work at one. And that's when I, you know, decided to kind of just cold email any startup company in the Valley that I thought was interesting. And so then I ended up getting that internship at FlightFox, which was my first startup experience. And then once I was there, I mean, you know, I was basically working with the founders out of an apartment, classic Silicon Valley style. Like I was living with them. So I was doing everything from customer support to marketing to sales, you know, it's just everything. And then once I spent some time there, I realized, you know, there was this whole movement of inbound marketing going on. So I wanted to learn about marketing, or inbound marketing specifically. So then I ended up applying to HubSpot, which was at the time they had an IPO, so it was still like less than half the size that it was today. So I went there, I did product marketing and business development there. So I learned all about inbound marketing from the company that basically created inbound marketing. And then once I did that, a company, I actually got an intro from the founder of the first company I worked for to another startup founder who ended up hiring me to basically apply all the skills that I had learned from HubSpot about inbound marketing. So it was like a straight transition there. I helped them set up HubSpot and basically their inbound marketing strategy. Once I did that, I went to ToutApp, kind of did similar stuff. And then I reached a point where I realized that, okay, I know like the marketing side of things, but I also want to learn how to sell, like actual sales. And that's why I decided, hey, I'm gonna figure out who the people are in the area and in Silicon Valley who do business development specifically, because it's more like partnerships, it's more strategic. And I made a list of people that I wanted to reach out to, and my boss was one of them. So I ended up emailing, I was gonna email him, and then I saw his LinkedIn post, so I did it. So interesting, semi-interesting. Yeah, I kept, I kept trying a bunch of projects. So the thing is, where every Mark Zuckerberg, there's a billion failed Mark Zuckerbergs that no one talks about. So you can't, it's all nice and sexy to be a startup founder, but a lot of them are actually struggling.
Yeah.
So one thing is you should actually acquire skills. So in case your startup fails, you would still have a job. And in a tech startup, there's two things that you can bring to the table. So one is you can code or you can sell. So I wanted to figure out how to sell. I didn't want to code. So that was the reasoning.
So you still want to like eventually start a startup?
Yeah. I'm kind of right now in that phase where I'm trying to get good at selling, and then if something comes along, I'll start it.
Can you speak on the differences between East Coast and West Coast markets for startups, and sort of what's kept you on the East Coast, and I don't know, are you still looking to move out west again or something?
Yeah, it's kind of like a tough transition for me because I like San Francisco a lot as well, and then I like Boston as well. Big difference is Boston is very sort of heads down, all about like work, like let's produce things. San Francisco has a big sort of network effect where they believe a lot in network, so knowing people. So a lot of the companies that you hear about raising money or getting acquired, a lot of those people are actually friends with each other.
Yeah.
So, which is not a bad thing, but it's very, two very different cultures. For me, like specifically what I wanted to learn, it didn't matter whether I was in San Francisco or Boston. Like I wanted to learn how to sell. So whatever company, or whoever person specifically was going to teach me how to do that, I was just going to end up there. It's also very expensive to live in San Francisco compared to Boston. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to stay back here for now. It's insane. You couldn't live in the city unless you were making high, 6 figures. So, any other questions? All right, awesome. All right, thanks guys.